Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics.
Hello, mate. There you are. How you doing?
Hello, mate. Right, coffee down, ready now. How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad.
Brilliant. A well-planned episode interrupted by what is that ringing? I mean, that's not a retro ring on a mobile, is it? That's not a ye oldie-fashionedy ring. No, it's a. If you're not watching this, ladies and gentlemen, on YouTube, you will notice that you won't know that Sam has just lifted up a landline.
Yes,
Sam?
yes. So that ringing. So apologies everyone for that ringing. It was interrupted. It was a scam call. I did look. I didn't just hang up on a person. But actually, who calls a landline these days? Other than scammers, yes, no. In the studio, the adapted studio, there is still a landline, and it just decided to join us on this rather special episode of Drewling Samantics. Not quite how I'd planned on opening this one, but
I mean,
apologies.
Look, I mean, even I, ancient and decrepit as I am, even I don't pick up the candlestick telephone and pick the receiver to my ear anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you remember when it was carrier pigeons, so.
Oh, mate, yeah. Two tins tuned with a bit of string. That was it. Oh,
Apologies, everyone. Normal service about to be resumed. How are you, mate? Good to see you.
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, had a busy week. Well, of course, we've finished the half-term show, Hansel and Gretel. I am literally out of the woods now.
Oh, how long were you thinking that one out?
Oh, mate, I've got it written down. I've got it written down here.
But no, and I take it all shows went well, and it was all.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. How about yourself? Busy week? Good week?
Not massively busy, just lots of little bits going on at the moment, really.
Yeah.
And obviously, we had an incredible show last week, the wonderful Christoph Phillips. One that if you're tuning into this episode and you haven't listened or watched last week's, please do, because incredible story, and just a really, really lovely guy. Like I haven't seen him for a long time, and it just immediately back into how we were when we were working together. And
that's nice. That's nice.
I think I don't imagine that guy hasn't got chemistry with anyone. I think is that the right phrasing? That sounded really weird. I cannot imagine Christoph not having chemistry with anyone. That's what I meant to say. Like, because he's so lovely and very, very.
You know what you did there, mate? Don't you? You got your semantics right.
Oh, is that the first time in the history of the podcast that were? I hope we will never ever be drooling, because that's.
Well, let's be careful. I'm not promising anything, Sam. I'm getting on. You know what I mean?
You are of an age where get to a point where Verona's got to come in and feed you.
Anyway, just wheel me out.
What are we descending?
Where are we going?
What is going? Back to normality. And actually, I am going to go back and reference last week's episode because we said something, we alluded to something at the end of Christoph's show, not relating to Christoph, that basically explained that this week, well, we didn't explain, but we suggested that this week is quite special. And that's not because I brought out an ancient telephone to ring. That wasn't planned, I promise you. And there's nothing anyone on YouTube will be able to see. There's nothing particularly different about us. No. And we don't sound particularly different. And there's no one else here. It is just the two of us. But today, Drew, I say today in that this episode is as close to as possible, is a very, very special and significant time for Drewling Samantics. Would you care to explain to our lovely listeners and viewers why that is?
Thank you, Sam. Well, there's no beating about the bush. We are 5 years old. As Sam said, within a couple of days, we started Drewling Samantics with our first episode, and we have been successfully podcasting as Drewling Samantics for 5 years, my friend.
I want to say 27th or 28th of February 2021.
Wow.
Back in the midst of lockdowns and unwelcome guests and a time where things were very different. And that sounds really dramatic, but I think it's absolutely true. It was a very different world. And that is absolutely the reason why we're here now, or more specifically, why we started doing the podcast, because the world was a very different place. And we felt there were messages that needed to be heard. We won't go too deep into it because we've done it lots over the past 5 years. But essentially, we were quite angry, I think is fair to say.
I think so. Yeah.
Certainly perturbed because, rightly so, we weren't able to work because it wasn't safe and the world was adjusting to things. So that made us annoyed, but not sort of bitter, because it was for the right reasons. What did piss us off, to put it politely, is the fact that the government, and I'm using that as a broad term, I'm not specifying party or people, just in general, the message we were kind of given was, right, you've had your fun, now grow up. And that's reading between lines and possibly over-egging the pudding. But essentially, there was an advert campaign or sort of some...
There was, yeah.
Notices, I don't know how you want to phrase it, but that suggested that if you were a dancer, a singer, an actor, a performer, someone who was doing something artistic, that perhaps you should put that to one side and start a new career in order to help the world. And I think our biggest argument behind that was, if you are stuck at home, you can't go anywhere, you can't go outside, you cannot leave, surely what's needed most at that time is entertainment and a distraction. And where else do you get that than from actors, singers, dancers, performers, people on your television, on your DVDs or your videos or whatever, Betamax or whatever you grew up with, one of those wind-up things where you look through the thing and you see... I obviously digress, but... So you and I, having had various sort of Zoom chats and having a beer here and there, because we couldn't do it in person, we weren't able to work together, we weren't able to meet up and catch up in our normal way that we would, so we did it digitally. We sort of went... We had discussions and it ended up being rants and not debates, because we were very much on the same side, but sort of going, and then realised, actually, this needs to be heard. Like, a lot of people, I'm sure, will agree with us, and a lot of people may not be aware quite how much it's affecting us. And people go, oh, woe is me, I'm not able to go on a film set and have nice food and be sort of clamoured around and all that sort of thing. But it wasn't that. It was, our jobs have been taken away from us, and we're kind of not being appreciated for what we have done, despite it being something that is very, very much helping people right now. So we decided to carry on doing what we were doing, having chats, but just to hit a little record button and then release it to the world. And somehow, Drew, we're 5 years down the line and we're still doing it. How is that even possible?
I don't know, because I mean, we never planned to really. We didn't have an end game, you know. We never said, "Oh, we'll do this for 6 months," or when all the the unwelcome guests slunk off into a corner, we'd stop. We didn't. And I think a lot of that, and for me personally, because the other thing that we said is, at that time there are so many other people. Actors and singers, they were visually, obviously, people could see the effect. Theatres aren't open. People aren't, there aren't concerts. People aren't singing in pubs. But then, we said, well, there are an awful lot of other people behind the scenes. Their jobs are in jeopardy. They've had to stop because, film production, stage shows, everything else. And it was that time. And I think one of our strengths and one of the reasons... Well, we enjoy doing this anyway, but I mean, one of the reasons Drewling Samantics has been successful, for want of a better word, is that we said we would get people on that had a story to tell, not only about their professional, but their lockdown stories, their unwelcome guest stories, how it was affecting them, and how their industries were, that horrible word, viable, how they were bringing in income into the country. We were economically sound, albeit we couldn't do it because of that period. Well, and it was interesting because you said, well, go off and be a plumber, go off and be an electrician, go off and do that, get a real job. Well, they weren't working at that time either. They were all on furlough.
No.
They were costing the government money. So it always made me laugh at people. Like, yeah, go and get a real job. Well, they're not working anyway. So, what's the bloody difference? But I think that's been, we've always had those guests on, and we've had some amazing guests. And we, like recently, we spoke to the wonderful Kim Scopes, who's is an amazing puppeteer. People may not know how that works, and we've been privileged to have several puppeteers on, Roman and Tom, all working in different spheres. Film, television, stage, all those are covered. Warhorse, a multinational success, come out of this country, making economic, bringing money in. You can't knock that,
No.
So, and we've had those people on, and watchers and listeners have gone, watchers and listeners occasionally have said to me, wow, you're still doing Drewling Samantics. That is amazing. Yeah. What season are you on now? And, we go, well, 15. They go, right, I've got some catching up to do.
Exactly
I'm 6 seasons behind, mate, So
or you'll get people out of the blue come up to you and sort of go, I listened to blah, blah, blah episode the other day, one of my favourites ever. And you think, bloody hell, like, you sort of forget, like, we do this and we enjoy it and it's great. And then do the edit, out it goes. And we don't really track numbers all that much because it's not a numbers game for us. We are in the same position as when we started. We are unpaid. This isn't a paid job. Now, don't get me wrong. No. There are sponsorship things that come along and you'll hear the odd advert now and then. But we're not doing this because it sustains us. We're doing it because we believe in the cause, as we did right at the start. Yes, the purpose is still very similar. It might have shifted slightly, but we're still doing it. The word for me, I think, is awareness. Like, your big actors are on posters and your big shows are advertised everywhere. But not everyone knows the name of the makeup artist or the people in the stunt team or your post-production crew or anything like that. So what we wanted to do was bring those names and those jobs specifically to light. And we're still doing that now. And we will continue to do that regardless of what we get from the podcast on a sort of a financial level or what have you. Of course, we'd love this to be something that we can earn more from, but that is never what it was meant to be, and it's never what we're waiting for. It won't get to a point where it's so big that we go, fine, well, we can stop now because we've made them. That's not what it's about. And it's another reason we're still going, because every single day we're meeting new people who are helping this industry run, and creatives, even if they're not faces you see, are essential to the world in general. So we will continue bringing those people out, and anyone who's got a story to tell, anyone who's passionate about what they do, come on in, because that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. I mean, and it is a world. The creative world is, you never stop learning. And, we learn something new from almost every one of our guests who comes on, explains the nuts and bolts of what they do. And you get that, I never knew that, or I did know that, but tell everyone else, because why would anybody else that they're not in the industry know? But it's very interesting, I mean, I would be equally as interested if somebody came on. They probably won't, but somebody came on who was an engineer or who made, had some technology. I'd be sitting there equally fascinated. Right? I don't know how that works. I don't, it affects us directly if we, work on a film. If, the sound engineer, how does that work, mate? Blah. I don't necessarily need to know how a boiler works, because I'm not going to, except if it gets cold and I can't turn it on, then I might bloody want to know.
Well, yeah,
but
exactly.
But it's interesting that you say that we never really had a plan, but equally we didn't say, like you said, we didn't say, right, well, after 6 months we'll stop. I think it's our personal. We personally enjoy meeting each other if we haven't been working together, whatever, every week and having a natter anyway. That's great. And that was probably initially what you and I got from the podcast, is the fact that we could sit there, talk to someone, have a beer, and vent. But it's just a joy to bring it, and there is no end to this, because there are so many more stories to tell, we let's just keep doing it. It's one of those.
This isn't a farewell thing. We're not come on and gone and right.
Oh Christ, no! Good Lord, no.
But it did also make me think, like, knowing we were building up to this moment over this week. It did make me sort of think, and I've got a question for you, and it's quite a broad one. And it's not like, have you ever had a plan within this vocation? So I'll give you an example, and I'm sure I'm going to regret bringing it up because I hate bringing it up anyway. But you do these adverts where you're dressed as Einstein,
yeah.
I'm guessing, and feel free to correct me, but I'm fairly confident that there wasn't sort of this thing that you'd made a note to yourself, or it was in the back of your mind where you went, right, I've now got a national commercial, huge commercial. I don't need to pursue commercials anymore. And putting money to one side, because obviously we'd all love a commercial because they are probably one of the best paying elements of what we do. And we all need to live, so we all need to bring the money in. And yes, you're never going to go, unless you get to ridiculous heights, you're never going to go, well, I've made enough money, I can live off that now, I don't need to bother to do anything. Yes, I think some people have done that, but actually I would say that it's almost the opposite is true. You get to a point where you're making so much money that you go, well, I just need more, and it's
yeah.
Obviously that doesn't really happen in our industry. We're talking more like sort of super businessmen and what have you. But making money aside to be able to live, I'm guessing you didn't have a sort of, right, I've got national commercial, West End leading role, Hollywood film, and once you've ticked those, no, I don't need to do that anymore. I'm guessing that's not a thing.
No, I mean, I will say one thing about, the Einstein is almost as old now, or as old as Drewling Samantics, believe it or not. And that was a stroke of luck. A little stroke of genius by my agent, and it fell in. And it also, I have to say, it was a saving grace, because like a lot of people who sat there, in our business, I wasn't earning any money, and the government took a little bit of time to roll out the self-employment payments, blah. But to get the commercial and to get the income was fab. It really was great, and I really needed it. Subsequently, I've enjoyed doing it. I love doing it, and I'm very grateful. And I don't know how long it's going to go on for. One doesn't know how long anything's going to go on for. In any sphere of the world. So to answer your question, I've never really planned. I've never really had things I'd like to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Roles I'd like to play. But I've not got a sort of done it. I've not a bucket list. If you know what I mean. I've not like that's it, be all and end all. If I was lucky enough to work at the RSC, I would still want to work at the RSC. I'd still want to do it for the next 20 years. Not one play isn't. Because I think it's like we were saying. I think we keep on working. We keep on learning. I mean, we're lucky in this business that we actually don't have to retire. If one is fit enough and still has the ambition and the drive and is able to, you carry on working. I'm of a certain age and I have no desire to retire at all. I obviously now I know on my CV, it doesn't say, playing age 35 to 40, I've had to temper that a little bit, but by the same token, I've no desire to say, right, when I reach, 70, I'm going to stop. No, if I'm able to, I'll still be working when I'm 80. There's no need to stop. Unless, and I will know it, because the thing is, I suppose it's like being a sportsman. If your performance is suffering because of your age or circumstances, you'd pull back. There are things that I can't, there are things I can't do now. But you learn that, and I think that's what we've learned looking, talking to a lot of our guests, they've gone, I went down that path. My life took me down that path because I'm good at that, or I went down that path because I was no longer good at that. And I think I haven't had a plan. I've taken. I mean, it's very strange coming from someone who's fairly risk averse. I kind of like the unpredictability of the business, and equally when the highs come along, they're even higher because you don't know. So I mean, the successes that one has, and the buzz and pleasure you get from being successful, from working. I mean, I get a buzz every time I get a job because it's like, ha, I'm working, yay!
Yes, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So that I will never lose that.
No, and I think it's you brought up sports people as sort of an analogy. I think it's interesting to look into that because some sports aside, they're not necessarily affected by your age in the same way. But certainly there are a lot out there, if we used football as an example, or perhaps sprinting in track and field, there comes a point where you are no longer able to achieve the levels at which you may have been at. And quite often, I guess, in the sporting world, you'll find people will retire or change discipline or what have you, because they've got to a point they're like, well, now is the time to stop because it can't get any better, or I can't better what I've done. I don't think that exists with us because I think it's all relative. Yes, you may not be able to play that hero in perhaps a superhero movie once you go beyond a certain age, but it doesn't mean you can no longer be number one on the billing or the hero in something, because it's not as tapered down to a point. There is no expiry in the same way.
No, that's very expiry date is a really good way of putting it. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
And we're not saying that, because I mean, look at footballers as an example. You can be on the top of the game and then you don't have to retire, but you could go to a slightly lower level and to a slightly lower level, and you'll still get I'm sure you still get the enjoyment and the thrill of it, but you are not at the pinnacle anymore. And for some people, I guess that can you handle that? Do you pull out at a certain point? I don't think it's comparable with what we do. I mean, here's an example. Look at someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger as an example. So when he was younger, he was obviously the huge, muscly hero. But even beyond when he was at his peak of fitness, he's still been able to do some of the most incredible things and still been like elite, just not in quite the same way. And I don't think perhaps you could say, if you then said someone like Gary Lineker as an example, elite footballer, one of the greatest this country has ever seen, stopped doing that, became an elite pundit, one of the best TV presenters the country has ever seen. But they're not the same thing. Whereas I think going from being a 25-year-old superhero to, I don't know, unbelievable leading man as like a detective in your 60s or something, still at the same level, just a slightly different discipline there.
It's I think it's realizing that I mean, if you set I think some people in every sphere of life, but people in our industry, you can set yourself and say, if I don't do that, if I've not been in this position, whatever it may be, by whatever age, I'm stopping. It's like, well, don't do that. Well, I wouldn't do that personally, because there are so many variables within that, in so many ways your life, your personal life your professional life could change, that having not got there, you may be bitterly disappointed, but actually your life is very successful in other spheres. And I think it's keeping that, Erin Geraghty said it when we had her on. She said, and I've quoted her on this before, she said, always be you.
Yeah. Never
Never forget who you are. And I think that, I mean, I've seen people, that I've worked with people, and they are so determined. They have such ambition and drive. And you go, that's all very well, but your personal lives, you have no personal life. If that's what you want to, that's where you want to be, fine. I'm not knocking that, but are you happy?
Are you sacrificing too much? I think
yes, and is getting where you want to be, when you get there, are you just going to be left there standing on this sort of lonely little place that only you are inhabiting because and if that's where you want to be, fine. If you can live with that because you tick that big box, I don't think I don't think I want to be there. I have ambition, I have drive. I said I don't want to, and I still things I want to do. I still think I could play a really bloody good Iago if the RSC are listening. I don't think age will restrict me on that. I'm heading towards a time now where I'm going to be giving my King Lear, and that would be fabulous. So do you know what I mean? It's
Well, yeah, I think look at it as adapting and adjusting rather than completely changing. So I am well aware I am no longer ever going to be considered to play Marius in Les Mis. Like that is certainly for someone far.
Mate, if you're at the back of the stalls, I could, if I take my glasses off, God, no.
Thank you. A few filters and bright lights in the place, maybe.
No, I know what you're saying.
I'm
Forgive
well
me.
aware of that, but that Javert is still very much within
Absolutely,
reach. And that is the same production. I would say that the characters, their involvement is as important. They're both enormous roles. That's a slight adjustment based on something that I cannot control whatsoever, which is aging. You can certainly do things about it. And something sort of jumped into my mind, and forgive me anyone who is not a football fan or not interested in football or doesn't know much about football, but something popped into my head, and it makes me wonder, maybe we've been too short saying that what we said about sportsmen. Zinedine Zidane was widely considered the best player in the world in his prime. He just an unbelievable footballer and won the greatest trophies possible, including the World Cup. Now, you cannot get better than being in the team that is the best in the world. Football. He's also gone on as a manager to win pretty much every trophy available to him. I wonder... I mean, Zinedine, if you're listening, feel free to come on the show. We'll make an exception that you're not an actor or a performer in that sense.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that.
Certainly as he does his own stunts, as we learned from a headbutt many years ago. Anyway, but I wonder, would he see it in the same way? So the way I'm going, I can't play that role because I'm too old, but I can still be in this incredible production and still be a massive role. Is it the same as him going, well, I won the World Cup, but then I've won the Champions League as a manager? Would he consider them the same? I'm not sure he would.
I mean, it's interesting because, well, he's the thing there. He's as you said, about the two roles in Les Mis. He's had two roles in football and done as pretty much as well as you can do in both of them. So
exactly,
you look at it from that point, he's been uber successful. We'll get off the age thing in a minute, but I have to tell you, I was doing a Faulty Towers show the other night, and as is my wont as Manuel, I was under the tables searching for rats, hamsters, bread rolls, goodness knows what else, and I decided that, and this table was about 25-30 foot long, that I would start at one end and go all the way to the other end of the table, on my way, pulling legs and tickling people and the rest, and it was going very well. And so I got halfway along, and then there was a bar about 18 inches, maybe less, from the floor. And I had to go under this bar to get along the table. And I thought, I did get halfway through and I was dragging my backside under this bar, going, what the fuck are you doing?
You are in your late 80s.
Yeah. I said, should I be doing you, silly? And I got to the other end and sort of worked my way from the table. And this lady looked at me, she went, he's terribly lithe, isn't he? And I thought, you have no idea how I'm going to suffer for this in the morning, love. Yeah. But I got and I came out the other side, and my Verona was playing Sybil, and she looked across at me, she shook her head and went, you silly old sod, But everyone was laughing. I thought, oh, yeah, that was it. That was,
But there will come a time where you won't even attempt that because you'll be like,
oh God,
it's not worth doing. But does that change anything? No, you adapt slightly. No. I think in our field of work, or certainly in broader terms, in the world of productions and creativity, I don't think it's quite the same. And we've gone off on a sort of tangent. It's a related one, but we have. But essentially, I think I would say the same. I've never had a plan. There are certainly things on a bucket list. There are certainly things I want to achieve, but they are not tick them off and never pursue them again, or tick them off and move on to something else. They are take them in my stride and be proud and honoured that I've done them and continue to push just as hard to keep doing them. And I think that
I a friend of I'm not going to mention any names, but someone that Verona knows, and we went to see them in the West End. Went to see him in the West End in a big musical, and he was great, and he was having a whale of a time, and enjoyed himself mightily. And then a few months later, we got in contact somehow. And he'd packed up and gone off to be a police detective. He changed careers, and he said, "I've had a very successful and albeit a very successful, short successful career." He said, "But I kind of," he said, "I've been in the musical I've always wanted to be in. I've done stuff that I've always wanted to do." He said, "I love this business, but I really fancy becoming a copper."
Wow! And
now. We were sitting watching one of these crime reconstruction documentaries the other night, which I love. Blood, gore, and the copper gang. Yeah, well, it was blood spatter and all that. And there was the guy playing the detective, and then there was the detective. And the detective was this guy that I knew. And I went, well, isn't that ironic? He's gone from being an actor, performing in the West End, become a detective, and he's still on bloody telly.
Yeah.
It was.
I wonder if there'll come a time where he's involved in a case that's so big that it becomes a documentary at some point, and there'll be an actor playing him.
Well, there was. That was it. There was.
Sorry, I thought you meant he was. Oh, I'm with you. Right, sorry, I got.
He was the detective. Then they show the real life where they said, "Oh yeah, then we did this, then we did that, and this that," and then there was a reconstruction going on where there was an actor playing.
Sorry, I got confused. Yeah. No, but wow, what an incredible!
I know, isn't it? It's and I thought, oh, that was. But when we just sort of sat here going, how ironic is that? And how wonderful. And I mean, I don't think he would have ever have planned that or ever have thought. I don't think he would, I don't think he'd set himself targets and gone, well, when I've ticked all those boxes, I'm going to retire and become a copper. I think it's just something that happened. And, and a superb actor and performer, and also a very lovely bloke. And obviously, because they caught the criminal in this case, not a bad copper either. So,
well, yeah.
He's ticked the boxes all round. But yeah,
maybe that was something he'd always wanted. Maybe growing up, it was one day I'll be a policeman, and he saw the opportunity to pursue that. And ironically, acting was his way to building up to a point where he was comfortable enough to go, right now, I'm going to go for my passion. It tends to be very much the other way, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. How incredible!
I also another little. Go on.
I was just going to say. So I don't think many people do have a cut and shut plan in this industry. No. Just like we didn't with the podcast. And
with the podcast, absolutely.
Just like that, I think it will continue as long as it can continue. So sorry.
I also think there's. I mean, we've had guests on that we've always wanted to talk to. But it's like, well, once we talk to that person, that's it, end of, we can't top that. There are so many stories, and we said so many diverse people in the business, and if you are in a particular arena of the industry, there are so many different ways of doing that job. There are so many different ways of coming to that job. If you're a stuntman, you come to it in many, many different ways. Makeup artists, technicians or whatever, all the people we've spoken to, everyone has a journey that, takes them. I mean, Christoph's was an amazing story, but we've had other amazing stories on, and interesting ways of approaching the business. That's why I think, that's what I think is the success, if you like, of Drewling Samantics, but also the thing that makes me go, let's get another guest. There are more to this. There's more to this.
What we've essentially said there is we are kind of surplus to requirement, and as long as we've got interesting guests on, we'll keep going, mate. We're just wranglers. Control
actor wranglers, performer wranglers. Yeah. There was another phrase I was going to use there, but I stopped myself. In time.
No, we don't need to do that.
because we couldn't afford the legal fees.
No. That's something.
No.
Being a non-profit podcast, we don't need anything like that to rear its ugly head. But
Yes,
an interesting conversation, a very in-depth conversation, but overall, just a proud moment, I think.
Yeah, mate.
Be able to say we've spent 5 years of our lives doing something that we're still this passionate about, that is still continuing to garner audiences and bring people in and get positive comments and interactions. And so there's absolutely, in that sense, no reason for it to not continue doing that. And that is what we're going to do. We will keep going until it's just you and me and no listeners at all. And at that point, we'll probably keep going anyway.
I'll probably keep going anyway because there's just a load more piss taking with each other we can do, isn't there?
Well, there is that as well.
There is that.
So until you hit 200 years old, and we know it's not that far away, we'll probably keep going for a bit, mate.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to keep going, until you get a new phone.
Right. Yeah. Weird thing is, you can't even get one now, can you?
No.
Because it doesn't really exist. You have to pay a premium to have a landline, which no.
I'm going to say landlines are more premium now than mobiles. It's ridiculous.
Madness. So all I've done is given a shout out to the old style of life, albeit very undeliberately. But no, mate. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
It's been great.
Hopefully, people are enjoying this journey we're on as much as we are. Hopefully, lots of people out there will continue to go on this journey with us because it's going to keep going for as long as we can possibly keep it. And to keep it going, I think next week we should have someone more interesting than us to listen to.
Let's have one of our fabulous guests on, mate.
Yeah,
let's do it.
We can probably manage that. So make sure you come back next week when you won't have to listen to any more of me and him rabbiting. Well, there'll be a little bit. But there'll be someone much more interesting, far more talented, and better looking than Drew. Better looking than me? Debatable. We don't know yet.
Mate, steady, easy, honestly.
Well, I had to say something positive. I've got a fucking old phone and...
Old phone,
play the young people anymore in the shows.
Oh yeah, that's it. Everything's falling apart, mate. Go, leave now before it all falls.
Yeah. Until next week, everyone have a fabulous few days. And we'll see you on the other side with the first episode in the second 5 years of Drewling Samantics. That doesn't make any sense at all. I know
what you're saying, mate. You just said it really badly, but don't worry.
Yeah. Tune in next week where I'll say more stuff really badly. See you later, mate.
Take care, everyone.
Easy, everyone. See you later. Bye.
Take care, Sam.
Thanks again for watching this episode of Drewling Samantics.
Please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video.
Don't forget, we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app. And please support us on social media. All our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so why not share with your family and friends so they can join in too? Thanks very much. See you next time.